Good evening, everyone, on what is a very rare, nice summer evening in the UK. Look at that. The bunnies are out enjoying the sunshine. Now, I thought I'd better cover some of the basic building blocks of my armed forces structure. And where I'll begin is with the section and platoon level. Now, this is the very basic building block, and I've ended up with a system which is slightly different to a lot of other armies. Now, a lot of other armies will follow the Roman model, the Conturbernum, I think I've said that right, of 8 soldiers, and then the century is actually 80 to 90, although Roman cavalry centuries could get a bit bigger, but generally 80 to 90, not 100 as commonly thought. And that's pretty much the working model which the Western armed forces structures have followed throughout the years. Now, I actually group mine slightly differently. I work in 3, 6 and 9s for the army, and then for the Air Force I work in pairs, and for the tanks I work in pairs, and for the Air Force I work in 4s, which is a flight. But I have a squadron size of 9. I don't know why, although some are 18. There's a few variations. So the British generally work to 8 soldiers per section, divided into 2 fire teams, Charlie and Delta. The USA, the numbers can get a bit bigger. Normally 3 plus a team leader, but you can have sections of 10 to 11 depending on which branch of service. British Army tank troops are normally 3, so are the Russians. British Armoured Infantry 4 Warriors normally. American 4 Bradleys, although American tank platoons are 4, I believe. So there is some variety, but we're looking at very manageable things. Now, for some reason, I've ended up with a section really of 9, although the dismounted element tends to be 6. And there is a reason for that. So the main reason for this is because if I'm crewing vehicles, so these are the light role airmobile infantry, and if they're going to be in a BVS 410 Viking, then there'll be 6 dismounts and 3 with the vehicle. So there'll be a driver, a gunner / commander in the front, and a rear gunner at the back, so 3. And this follows for the CV90C, where you've got 3 crew, commander, gunner and driver. It differs for the Boxer, where you've got 2 crew, so you have 7 dismounts, and for the paratroops, where they're not using a vehicle, there'd just be 9 per section. So I work in 3, 6 and 9. It's just the way that my force has evolved a little bit differently. Some would say that this is too light. If you get a casualty, I accept that. This is based around the Swedish armoured infantry model, where the CV90C can only carry 6. The Warrior generally is 7, and normally in Western military armies are not up to full strength. So you might have a nominal section of 10, but only 8 in the section. So really you can't go below 6. So having these smaller sections allows me to keep a reserve at company level to backfill. So that's how I achieve that. So if there are some casualties, I can backfill at the company level, not so much at the platoon level. So let's have a look at my basic section structure. I have an in command of the section. That is normally someone of the rank of corporal. I then have a second in command, and I split them into 2 3-person fire teams. So the British work in 4-person fire teams, Charlie and Delta. I work in 2 3-person fire teams, Charlie and Delta. Now, one of these fire teams will have the GPMG gunner in, a designated marksman rifle or an anti-tank gunner with an NLAW or with a Carl Gustaf. The Carl Gustaf is my favoured weapon, and that's been rolled out in the M4 version pretty much everywhere. They may have a javelin, but obviously if you've got a javelin, you're going to struggle with 2 heavier weapon systems in the section. So then you might be keeping the javelin on the vehicle and dismounting as such. There are other options as well. If you are attacking a position, you might want to move the DMR, take a bit of a different change. So you've got your LMG and your GPMG in Delta, or you might want to keep that there. You might want to take the Grenadier and put the Grenadier and you know, mix and match. So you can do that. It is flexible. Alternatively, the section commander may push forward with 2 and have a base of fire of 4. So there will be varieties and tactical situations where they can change. But basically, the basic building block I use is these 3 person fire teams. And there is a reason for doing so. And that is, when it comes to CQB, close quarter battles, this is kind of what I've evolved into. So you've got the in command, the corporal. Now, one of the sections will actually have a sergeant in command of it, and the other one will have a lieutenant or second lieutenant in command of it. And we'll come onto that when we get onto the platoon level. Then you've got a grenadier. This one has an M4 carbine with a underslung a grenade launcher 203. And then we have the light machine gunner with a Minimi, and this second in command's got suppressed M4 with a scope. We've got the GPMG, general purpose machine gun, 7.62. It's got the killing power that you need, the hitting power that you need. And then you've got the designated marksman, this one with an SR25 kind of derived rifle. So these are my basic building blocks for my section. Now, there are some varieties. So for example, if the section with the Charlie G, the Carl Gustav, may not have the GPMG, but may have a SAW, and then the 2IC may be carrying the ammunition or giving the guidance to the Charlie G gunner. So there are some varieties even within the sections, but this is my basic structure. And now we'll come on to how this builds up. And like I said, I work in 3, 6 and 9s. So if it's a power drop section, it will just be the 9 as they are, because you won't have a vehicle crew. Now, when we build up on this building block and we go to platoon level, if we contrast this with a British platoon, which has 3 sections of 8, and then it has, if you like, a command group, giving you a rough strength of around 30 odd people altogether. So you've got your 3 sections of 8, each with a corporal and a lance jack, a lance corporal, and then you've got your officer who's getting everyone lost and trying to get everyone killed. You've got your platoon sergeant who's trying to keep everyone alive and on the straight path to success, really. You've got your radio operator. You might have a mortar. That used to be a 51mm, but I think that's gone now and it's now a 60mm. I could be wrong there. I think they ran out of 51mm ammunition in Afghanistan. I might be wrong. And then you may have a runner as well. You may have an additional sergeant, or you may have an additional sort of medic or person there. There are some variations, but that's your basic structure of around 30 people. Now, my structure is 27, so it is lighter than the British structure, and that's made up of your 3 sections. And when dismounted, the platoon commander and the platoon sergeant will take over one of the sections, and just like here you have like a platoon sergeant and second command sergeant, you may have a vehicle sergeant, and this is very much around the Swedish model, where when they dismount, the officer may dismount with the infantry and take command of these 3 sections, or they may remain in the vehicle, or they may swap with one of the sergeants. So there is some variation. Now, the reason that I've kind of adopted this is the British tend to use a pair model, and a pair model the British will use for close quarter battle. So they'll have one behind the other, and then one will kick the door in, the other will throw a grenade in, and then they'll enter and clear a room. Now, my model is slightly different, and I've picked this up from an American CQB training site, and I tend to have 3. And the reason I tend to have 3 is because one can take a position, the other 2 can then swing in, and then one pick up the rear or go in a wedge formation down the street. So and I can't really demonstrate it because they're falling over. So I've ended up with this 3 fire team model for that reason. And I tend to use mine in buddies of 3, whereas the British use buddy as in a pair. So I tend to have 3. And so the way I think about this, and it's different to my organisation where you have 1 plus 7, so 1 sergeant plus 7, which is more like the army model of 8, but obviously you've got a sergeant plus no corporals, they're just officers. So my buddy system tends to be 3. So you may have 1 sleeping, you may have 1 keeping watch, and you may have 1 performing admin tasks. Now, the way I've kind of coupled this in is something called the dog watch, which is a naval term. So the naval dog watch is grouping 3 teams, so your 3 sections, and then they have an overlap period, if you like, the dog period, around 1800 every day. Now, there's different ways that you can structure this, but work-wise, this means that you may have a section on duty here doing a 4-hour slot, then you may have them resting, then you may have the other section taking over, and then there's this overlap called the dog watch. You can find more information about this by Googling it, but it allows 3 sections, 27 people, to maintain quite a lot of long-term endurance. It's used on submarines and it's used on ships. So that's kind of the basis of my 369. And if we take this further, now you can fly Chinooks as pairs, one covering the other, or you can use them in threes, and then a second set of threes to deliver your troops, or you can use them as a bigger group of 6. So that's kind of why I've gone 3, 6, 9, because it tends to be that everything works out. Like the mortar squad or mortar section's got 6 people in. It's just the way it seems to have worked out for my armed forces, that there tends to be 3 sections, 3 platoons per company, 3 companies per battle group, plus a support company, a weapons company. And that's just the way it seems to work for me. Again, in squadrons with the Air Force, I tend to go 9, 12, 18. And the reason I do that is because that gives you 4 pairs or 2 flights of 4 plus a spare. So that's just the way it's evolved. And that is my structure. So I hope that makes some sense. Like I said, there are criticisms and it may be too light. It is different to the American and the British model. It's more of a hybrid between the Israeli and the Swedish model, and it's just the way it's evolved. Take care. Bye.